When I first became interested in motorsport photography, I thought the difficult part would be taking the photograph, like timing, composition, lighting, and so on. But after spending more time at race events, I realized that many of the things that make a race weekend successful actually happen before you press the shutter button. Hi, my name is Ganesh. I'm a professional motorsport photographer based in Switzerland. There are a few things I wish I understood earlier. Not because they stopped me from taking photographs, but because they would have made the race weekends much easier and far more productive. For example, during my early days, most of my attention was focused on the cars, which sounds completely reasonable because that's why we are there in the first place. But after attending more events, I started paying attention to everything happening around the car as well, like the atmosphere around the paddock, the people working behind the scenes, the small details that most spectators never get to see. Eventually, I realized that some of my favorite photographs weren't always the car themselves. The next thing I noticed was that trying to photograph everything doesn't really work. At a race event, there is always something happening somewhere. If you spend all day chasing every possible photograph, you usually end up tired and with a memory card full of images that all look very similar. These days, I prefer to slow down a little, choose a few locations, spend some time there, and focus on creating stronger photographs rather than simply creating more photographs. Something else that caught me by surprise was preparation. Not the camera preparation, it's practical preparation. Because race weekends can be demanding. You spend a lot of time walking, often much more than you expect. Good footwear sounds like a small thing until you have spent an entire day moving around a circuit or a rally stage. The same applies to the weather. If it starts raining, you will be happy to have an umbrella for yourself and a rain cover for the camera. And if it's a hot day, staying hydrated becomes important much faster than you might expect. Those things aren't photography skill, but they can absolutely affect how well you are able to do the job. The next thing I noticed was how important planning becomes. Before an event, it's easy to think about where you want to shoot. What I have learned is that knowing where not to stand can be just as valuable. Some locations look perfect when you arrive. Then the car appears and you realize the background is distracting. The angle isn't working, or the location simply isn't producing the photographs you expected. A little planning beforehand usually saves a lot of time later. And finally, there is something that doesn't get discussed very often. Motorsport environments are busy places. Teams are working, drivers are preparing, officials are focused on running the event. Part of being professional is understanding the environment around you. Knowing when to move closer, knowing when to step back, and recognizing that not every moment needs a camera pointed at it. Sometimes the best decision is simply to stay out of the way and let people do their work. The interesting thing is that none of these lessons came from a camera manual. Most of them came from being at events, paying attention, and gradually understanding how these environments actually work. And even now, I still learn something new at almost every race weekend. Experience doesn't mean you stop learning. It just means you start recognizing situations earlier and making better decisions. This is Raceweek. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.